Welcome to USA Stories channel. We hope you will have fun with us. Enjoy watching. By the time I hit 60, I'd come to terms with my little corner of the world. I'd just stepped back from a long career, shaping young minds as a teacher, trading chalk-custard classrooms for a cozy home nestled on the outskirts of town. My days unfurled like petals, soft and unhurried, filled with the quiet joys of coaxing life from my garden and sinking into the pages of a good novel. 6 years back, my husband had slipped from this earth, leaving me to stitch together a gentle rhythm of routine that held me steady, but nothing could have prepared me for the storm that blew in. When my stepson Liam arrived to share my sanctuary, Liam was 25, a vibrant spark fresh out of college, his head buzzing with dreams of cutting his teeth as a graphic designer in the pulsing chaos of the city. His father and I had blended our lives in marriage just 3 years before his passing. And while Liam and I hadn't had the chance to forge a deep bond back then, our exchanges had always been laced with kindness, quick smiles and warm alios. So when his voice crackled through the phone a few months ago, tentative and edged with uncertainty, it threw me for a loop. "Hey, Sophia." He started pausing like he was testing the waters. "I know this is sudden, but I need a favor." The strain in his words hit me before he even explained he was bouncing between odd jobs, struggling to plant his feet in a ruthless industry, and the burden of rent was crushing him without a flicker of hesitation. I flung my door wide open. "Stay as long as you need," I told him, "until you've got a solid gig and a place to call your own." I can still see the day he rolled up in his beat-up old car. I'd spent the morning fussing over the guest room, smoothing the sheets, plumbing the pillows, wanting it to feel like a soft landing. As the hours crept by, a nervous flutter kicked up in my C******T, a sensation I hadn't felt in years. What would it be like? I wanted to have someone so young breathe life into my still house again. It had been an age since I'd shared this space with anyone, let alone a man his age. When he finally pulled in, I stepped outside, and there it was, that familiar grin I'd caught at family gatherings years ago. But something was different. Liam wasn't the lanky kid I remembered. He'd grown into a tall, broad-shouldered man carrying a quiet strength that threw me off balance. "Hey, Sophia," he said, pulling me into a swift, warm hug. "Welcome," I replied, feeling a little wobbly hope. The drive wasn't too brutal. "No, it was fine," he said with a shrug. "Thanks for letting me crash here." Those first few days slipped by in a hush. Liam kept to himself, either hole up in his room or out hunting job leads, and I danced around him, careful not to hover like some overbearing stepmom. Still, his presence jolted the house awake in ways I hadn't seen coming. I noticed the little things, the way he'd flash a grin over dinner or how he'd linger in the kitchen, chatting about his day just a moment longer than he had to. I'll admit it was nice having someone to pierce the silence. Then, a few weeks since, something unexpected unraveled. I turned in early one night, the house cloaked in its usual stillness, when around midnight, the faint creak of my bedroom door yanked me from sleep. Blinking through the fog, I saw Liam framed in the doorway, the hallway's dim glow casting shadows across his face. "Liam," I mumbled, voice thick with sleep and confusion. "Everything okay?" He stepped closer, his face hard to read in the low light, but I could feel something heavy clinging to him. "I couldn't sleep," he said, quietly drifting toward my bed. I sat up, rubbing my eyes. "Is something bothering you?" He paused, then sank onto the mattress's edge, its slight tilt snapping me fully awake. "I don't know," he said at last, his voice small. "I guess I've just been feeling lost." There was a raw edge to his words that tugged at me. I'd always seen Liam as steady, self-assured. But right then he was stripped, bare, vulnerable in a way that caught me off guard without thinking. I reached out, resting my hand on his arm, offering what comfort I could scrape together. "You'll be all right," I whispered gently. "It's just a rough patch. We all stumble through them sometimes." He turned to me, then his eyes locking onto mine, and for a split second, the air between us thickened. Electric, unnameable. I should have pulled back, cracked the tension with a light word, but I didn't. I stayed rooted, my hand still on him. "Thanks, Sophia," he murmured, barely audible, before standing slowly. His gaze held mine a beat longer. Then he slipped back to his room, the door clicking shut. I sank into my pillows, heart pounding, wrestling with what had just flickered between us. Was it real or was my lonely mind conjuring something from nothing? Morning came and it was like the night never happened. Liam chatted over breakfast about his job, his weekend plans, that easy grin back in place. But I couldn't shake the sense that something had shifted beneath the surface. I tried to shrug it off, blaming my own solitude for playing tricks. Yet as the days rolled on, I couldn't deny it, something was there. It sparked in the way his hand brushed mine in the hallway, or how his eyes lingered when he thought I wasn't looking subtle, sure, but impossible to ignore. And I started wondering, where was this headed one night? That question found its answer. I'd gone to bed early again, but sleep dodged me when my door creaked open. Once more, I wasn't shocked to see Liam there, less hesitant. This time we talked about his fears, his dreams, the weight of feeling adrift, and somewhere in the quiet, the space between us melted away. When our lips met, it wasn't rushed or reckless. It was a slow, tender unraveling of everything. We'd held back the warmth of his touch, the way he held me close stirred a longing. I'd buried deep, a tangle of comfort and guilt that stole my breath. What now? I whispered more to the stillness than to him. He shifted to face me. We take it one step at a time. I care about you, Sophia, more than I probably should. His honesty hit me like a wave rippling through the grief I'd carried for years. I care about you too, I admitted, voice shaking. But this is so complicated. I know, he replied, gentle but firm. We don't have to figure it all out tonight. We can just take it slow. I nodded, my mind a storm of caution and yearning. Part of me screamed to pull back, to rebuild the walls I'd let fall. But another part, the one that had lain quiet beneath loneliness, whispered that maybe I deserved this. Messy and unconventional as it was, the days after carried a new pulse. We didn't speak of that night, but the air hummed with an unspoken understanding. Then one evening, Liam burst through the door, his face alight with a grin. I think the interview went well, he said, dropping his bag. They seemed keen. I'll hear by week's end. That's wonderful. I beamed, genuinely thrilled. We spent the night laughing, talking, slipping into an ease that felt almost too natural as the hours stretched on. I caught myself watching him, the crinkle of his laugh, the way he ruffled his hair without thinking, the warmth in his gaze. It was strange, this pull, yet it felt right. Later, as I climbed the stairs to bed, his voice stopped me. Sophia. I turned, heart racing. He stood at the base, hands in his pockets, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. Yeah, I asked softly. I just thank you, he said, his tone tender. You've been there for me in ways I didn't expect. I don't want to mess this up. I smiled, though my C*** T tightened. You're not messing anything up, Liam, we're just figuring it out. He nodded, relieved. Good night, Sophia. Good night. Liam. Weeks drifted by, and we danced along this fragile thread, moments of closeness stitched with quiet restraint. Then came the night he landed his job. We celebrated with takeout and wine, toasting his future, his plans, his joy. But as the night deepened, the conversation turned to us, to that first kiss, to the pole we couldn't outrun. I haven't stopped thinking about it, Liam confessed. Voice low, eyes locked on. Line about you. My breath hitched. Neither have I whispered. He took my hand, his touch soft but deliberate. I know it's complicated, he said, but I don't care. I just want to be with you. In that moment, every doubt dissolved. I leaned into him, our kiss, a flood of all we'd held back, raw, real, and unapologetic. That night we crossed a line we couldn't uncross, and neither of us wanted to. It was tangled, wild, and utterly unexpected, but it was ours, lying there, wrapped in the quiet aftermath. I realized life doesn't bend to tidy rules. Sometimes it hurls you into the unknown with someone you never saw coming. And sometimes you let yourself feel it, complicated, messy, and beautiful, because happiness doesn't always show up how you imagined. In the end, it's fleeting, and maybe that's enough. If you enjoyed this suspenseful story and want to hear more, please make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more thrilling content.